The rain fell softly over the city as a tall man stepped out of a black car wearing a simple gray hoodie. His name was Alan Brooks, one of America's youngest billionaires, a man whose face appeared on magazines and business covers just 2 years ago. But now he lived like a ghost. After being betrayed by his business partner and abandoned by his fiancée when he lost part of his company, Alan wanted to know what true loyalty looked like. So, he created a plan to go undercover in his own mansion. He dismissed most of his old staff and hired new ones without revealing his identity. He pretended to be a property supervisor returning from a long business trip. No one in the mansion knew who he truly was. That evening, as thunder rumbled in the sky, Alan walked through his own front doors quietly. The golden lights reflected on the marble floors he once designed himself. But tonight, the mansion didn't feel like home. It felt strange, almost distant. Then he heard it, a faint cry coming from the living room. He followed the sound and found Martha, the maid, kneeling on the floor in her light blue and white uniform. Her hands shook as she wiped her tears. "Martha?" he asked softly. She jumped up, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know anyone was here." Alan frowned gently. "You've been crying. What's wrong?" She forced a weak smile. "It's nothing, sir. Just a bad day." But Alan could tell from the way her voice trembled it wasn't just a bad day. It was something deeper, something painful. And for the first time in years, his heart felt something again, compassion. The next morning, the mansion was filled with the soft cries of 2 babies. Their laughter had always been like music in the house, but that day, something felt different. Martha stood in the nursery wearing her light blue and white uniform. The twin boys, little Ethan and Liam, sat in their white diapers, clapping their tiny hands on the carpet. She tried to smile at them, but her heart was heavy. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, "Shh, Mommy's here, babies." Just then, Alan Brooks, the billionaire owner of the mansion disguised as a simple supervisor, walked quietly into the room. He froze when he saw Martha weeping beside the billionaire babies he had left behind months ago. "What's wrong, Martha?" he asked gently. She quickly wiped her eyes. "Oh, sir, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were here." He stepped closer. "You've been crying. Tell me the truth." She looked down, her voice trembling. "I'm just scared for the twins. Their father hasn't visited in months. The world only knows him as a billionaire, but they don't know what it feels like for 2 babies to grow up without a father's touch." Alan's throat tightened. She had no idea she was talking to the man she missed. She continued, "I'm just the maid, sir, but when they cry at night, I hold them like my own. I sing to them, feed them, and pray their father comes back one day." Alan's eyes grew wet. The guilt hit him like thunder. He thought hiding his identity would teach him who cared for him genuinely, but now, watching Martha cry over his own sons, he realized he had hurt the only people who truly loved him. He whispered to himself, "They deserve better, and so does she." That night, the mansion was quiet except for the soft sound of rain tapping against the windows. Martha had finally put the twins, Ethan and Liam, to sleep. Their tiny hands rested gently over each other's, innocent and peaceful. She kissed their foreheads and whispered, "Good night, my little angels." In the hallway, Alan stood watching through the slightly open door, his heart twisted with guilt and wonder. Those were his children, his blood, and yet they didn't even know his face. He had walked away months ago, pretending to be on business, because he wanted to test his staff and see who truly cared. But in the process, he had broken the hearts of 2 babies and the woman who loved them like a mother. As he stood there, a soft cry came from one of the cribs. Martha rushed back in, lifting Ethan gently. The baby clung to her neck and whimpered. Alan's eyes filled with tears. She really loves them, he thought, more than anyone I've ever known. The next morning, Alan decided to act quietly. He sent an anonymous email to the hospital, donating money for the twins' special checkups. He ordered baby supplies, toys, and diapers to be delivered in Martha's name. When Martha saw the deliveries, she gasped. "Oh my God! Who could have done this?" she cried with joy. Alan smiled secretly from behind the doorway. He felt peace for the first time in years, not the peace that money brought, but the peace that kindness gave. That evening, as Martha rocked the twins to sleep, she whispered, "Maybe their father hasn't forgotten us after all." Alan stood outside the door, whispering to himself, "No, Martha, I never forgot. I only forgot what truly matters." But the truth could. The following week, the mansion buzzed with quiet rumors. Something strange was happening. Expensive gifts kept arriving for the babies. Medical bills were being paid without question, and a new silver stroller appeared out of nowhere. The other maids whispered among themselves. "Someone out there must really love those babies," one said, but Martha only smiled sadly. "Maybe God finally answered my prayers." One morning, while cleaning the living room, she heard footsteps behind her. When she turned, she froze. Alan stood there, no longer wearing his simple shirt and cap. He wore a black designer suit with a red tie, his hair slicked back, his wristwatch shining like the morning sun. For the first time, he looked like the man from the news, the billionaire Alan Brooks. "Sir?" Martha whispered, her mop dropping from her hands. "What? What is this?" Alan took a deep breath, his eyes soft but filled with guilt. "Martha," he said quietly, "I haven't been honest with you." She blinked in confusion. "What do you mean?" He stepped closer. "I'm not just your employer. I'm the father of these twins." Martha's heart stopped. Her lips trembled. "You? You're their father?" He nodded slowly. "I went undercover because I was tired of fake love. I wanted to know who I could trust. But in doing so, I hurt you and our boys." Her knees weakened, and tears rolled down her face. "Why didn't you tell me, Alan? I cried every night, thinking you were gone forever." Alan's voice broke. "I thought I was protecting us. I see now. I was only running from love." The twins began to cry from the nursery. Martha turned toward their room, tears streaming down her cheeks. "They've been waiting for you," she whispered. Alan looked at her and said softly, "Then it's time I become the father they deserve." The next few days in the mansion felt different. The air was softer, filled with laughter and the faint cries of the twins. For the first time, Alan Brooks wasn't hiding. He held his babies openly, whispering their names like prayers. "Ethan, Liam, Daddy's here now." Martha watched from across the room, her heart torn between relief and pain. She had dreamed of this day, but never imagined it would come like this, full of truth, guilt, and tears. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Alan found her standing by the window, arms folded, staring into the garden. He approached quietly. "You've been quiet lately," he said softly. She turned to him, her eyes wet. "You don't understand how hard it was. Every night I prayed for help. I begged God to send someone to save your children, not knowing it was you all along." Alan swallowed hard. "I know. I can never erase the pain I caused, but I promise you, Martha, from now on, you'll never face another storm alone." He pulled out a folded document from his jacket and handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked. "Your new position," he said. "You're no longer just a maid. You're now the head caretaker of my estate and the twins' legal guardian, if anything ever happens to me." Martha gasped. "Alan, I can't accept this." "You can," he said gently. "You've been their mother when I wasn't a father. You deserve this more than anyone." "Is willin'," in his prose. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, voice trembling. For the first time in years, Alan felt peace. Not the peace of wealth, but the peace of forgiveness. Outside, the twins laughed in their crib, their giggles echoing through the golden halls. The mansion that once felt empty finally felt like home. Months passed, and the mansion that once echoed with silence now overflowed with laughter. The cries of little Ethan and Liam had turned into joyful giggles that filled every corner. The golden walls of the Brooks estate no longer felt cold, they pulsed with love and warmth. Every morning, Martha walked through the garden with the twins, dressed in tiny matching white outfits. They would point at butterflies, clap their tiny hands, and chase after the sunshine. Behind them, Alan Brooks, now free from disguise, watched with quiet pride. The world had started calling him the kind billionaire, after a magazine published his story. But Alan didn't care about the headlines anymore. The real reward was right in front of him, a family built not on money, but on care, forgiveness, and trust. One afternoon, as the golden sun sank low, Martha found Alan sitting by the fountain, holding the twins on his lap. "They love you so much," she said softly, smiling. He looked up at her with gratitude in his eyes. "No," he said, "they love us. You gave them what I couldn't love when I was lost." Martha sat beside him. For a moment, neither spoke. The twins giggled, splashing tiny hands in the water. Then Alan turned to her. "You once said you prayed for a miracle," he said, "but I think you were the miracle." Tears filled Martha's eyes. "And maybe God sent you back to remind me that even the broken can become whole again." As night settled, the mansion glowed softly under the lights. Inside, the twins slept peacefully in their cribs, and Alan stood at the door watching them, his heart full. He whispered to himself, "I went undercover to find truth, but I found something greater love." From that day forward, they weren't just a boss, a maid, and 2 children. They were a family of hearts, bound forever by compassion.